many of you might know that there are about 47,000 suicides a year in the United States. But that's actually not all, because only 1 out of 27 suicides are successful. So there are about 1.3 million suicides a year, attempts. Right. So when you think about 47,000, then the issue seems to be a small group of people who are traumatized, who have maybe particular dysfunctional issues. But when we think about 1.3 million, then that's a very different thing. So 47 is really the tip of the iceberg. And if the 1.3 people who are actually made an attempt, then people who have suicide ideation is significantly more than that. That's another iceberg underneath the iceberg, right? And of course, people who are not quite at the ideation stage that actually are miserable or suffering, that's an even bigger population, right? So that's a very different issue to think about here, because despite all of the things, success and the social and physical well-beings that have improved in the past 2 decades or two centuries, that our internal state of being is not where we want to be. In fact, it's getting worse. The suicide certainly be on the rise. It's one of the very few causes of death that's been on the rise in the past 10, 20 years. So when I started, I basically about a year and a half ago, I basically said, I could continue to do the venture stuff. We're managing about $5 billion. I could connect another 8 or 9 figure fee every year, or I could spend my time and resources together with my team to work on how can we actually change the inner well-being of the world, and doing something that I think is much needed in addition to solving the physical health and all those issues, which a lot of people are working on. I know I stand between you and lunch, so I want to make my remarks very short, 2 more minutes. And the phrase I like to use is that our mind divides and our heart unites. When I say heart, it doesn't mean the physical heart necessarily, but it's a part of our consciousness that actually sees everything as a whole, that's interconnected and deeply connected with each other, with nature, with everybody else. And if you look at what's causing our deaths, suicide thoughts, most of these are self-referential thoughts about the individual, as Dan talked about, or a sense of loneliness that's disconnected with everything else. So while the ineffable experiences in their psychedelics or meditation or other flow states are usually things where we actually lost a sense of self, that we feel deeply disconnected with everything around us and everybody around us. So there's a place for both. That, in fact, the only way for us to make scientific progress is by breaking things down, understanding how these parts work together, and then we can make new things happen. That's how physics works. I was a physicist a long time ago. That's how almost every kind of science works, is by breaking things down to understand their interrelationships. Then we can build new things out of it, or understand these inner laws of these inner parts. On the other hand, if that's all we do, we forget that we're all part of the whole. That in some ways it's similar to physics, wave and particle duality. And our society today is way for on the particle side, which we have achieved wonderful things based on this particle-based thinking, this individual separate self. But it's time to have the wave come back a little bit. And this wave-particle unity, which is very paradoxical, they're both true at the same time. So today in the morning you heard, I think, Christoph and I think Allison having this sort of debate of almost like this particle perspective and a wave perspective. And both are true about our consciousness. And I think I just want to leave you with, first is as we study consciousness, I think we need to keep both of these perspectives in place, that we're not just studying this individual separate sense of consciousness, there's a lot more different states of consciousness that we should study. And secondly is actually as we walk into this world, whether we're studying something or taking what we studied into the world or how we're living our lives, that keeping both of these perspectives of this separate self that's out for ourselves to create these wonderful things that we're building things wonderfully. We have this incredible interaction between different parts of this humanity, because if all we're the same, all one part of the same glob, there's not a lot of interesting things happening. So we need to be separate. But on the other hand, how can we continue to feel part of the whole, and this deep interconnection within ourselves, with us, each of ourselves individually, with others, and with things around us. That's also an incredibly important perspective to keep as we live our lives. So, thank you.